Oh wait, let me just start my local Audacity as well. We're still doing that, right?
Yes, please do.
Yeah.
We'll probably end up using the Riverside version,
What's the backup? Okay.
but yours is the
Testing,
backup.
testing,
Which is
interesting.
oh, I like that. Testing,
Yeah.
testing, interesting. By the
I'm
way,
pretty sure it's
Chris,
from like a rap song, but
you may not know, but you've made the
oh, maybe
JS
not
Party
testing.
soundboard. Did you know?
I do know that.
You do?
Yes.
How did you know that? I don't think you were here. Were you listening?
There's the thing where I say what.
Oh no no no! That's the old one. You got a new one now. You want to hear it?
I am okay. Yeah. Lay it on me. Lay it
I
on me.
forgot the what one. Here's your new one.
JavaScript should be destroyed.
That's a good one. I loved it.
Okay,
The
yeah.
best part is,
It's like so curmudgeonly and perfect.
well, it was being sarcastic, but now it's context free now, so it just
I,
sounds like
I
you just
know what
mean
I
it.
was. I was probably thinking about Hacker News comments. That's
I
probably
think you probably
the
were. I think you were.
context.
And then, oh, I added one for K-Ball, but I didn't get it uploaded into the deal, so I can't play it. But K-Ball finally landed one last week, so Amel, of course, you're on there, Web Lovers.
Web lovers, aka the best
The
sound
best.
thing ever.
What's K-Ball's thing?
K-Balls is, he goes, aha, I found you, you stinking bug.
Oh
Well,
yeah, that was a good one. I was on that show,
yeah, that was
wasn't
like
I?
just a couple weeks ago. It was during a
Yeah.
break, but
Oh, it was like, yeah, what we talked like
I
the
snagged it.
code visualization. Yeah, I was telling. Yeah, mine was like I think I like. Yeah, it was like it's an understatement that I like
Do you talk to your
communicate with
code?
talk to my code or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
How
yeah.
do you determine what goes into one of these things?
Yeah. It has to meet the Jerod bar.
I
If it
just
makes Jerod laugh, Jerrod's from the Midwest. You know, that's like this is like typical capitalism. You know, just like
okay. Tell me
if
why is that?
people in Middle America like it, it'll work. It'll
Oh,
sell.
I see.
You
So it's
know,
kind
you
of like
can't
the
cater. You know, especially when you're developing for the masses, you can't cater to New York and California because you just going to go above a certain threshold. So like if Middle America is happy, and I know this because I've worked at companies where we just this was like our goal, like EdTech for example. Like it couldn't be this super fancy interface, this that like we couldn't do all the things we wanted because people didn't need that or want that. Like people's relationship with the internet and technology is very different depending on where they live. So you know.
What does that have to do with sound
Oh, oh,
cards?
oh, sorry. This has to do with. Sorry, I lost my train. It's
that
it's
was an
Middle
epic. That
America.
was
The
fun,
reference
Mel.
he's from the Midwest, so if he likes it, it sells. That was the
Well,
joke,
that's the
you
point. So the
know.
point is like I'm the
Jared is
tastemaker.
Middle America.
I
Yeah,
am. So I get to decide like what's cool and what's not. Because if I think it's cool, then apparently both
yeah,
coasts have already thought it
yeah.
was cool,
He's also a
right?
white dude, right? So like in all fairness,
Yeah.
like
So
I
like
love
pure.
love our listeners. But I'm sure there's lots of you are probably white dudes, and that's great.
So
No problems there. So, you know,
so
anyways.
this does not answer Chris's question. The answer, Chris, is how does something make the soundboard?
Yes.
Foreshadowing. Mel,
That was the question. That was the
you may have
question.
just made the soundboard right there. Probably. Mel did. Jared's a white dude.
Oh,
Uh, if
right.
I think it's funny, it makes a soundboard. That's
That's
how it makes the soundboard.
right. You are a very
But
like
there's so much
lovely white dude.
blathering. Like there's like every episode is 2 hours of nonsense that you have to parse through. How do you find the funny, like, two
Oh,
seconds in there?
Oh, he probably has a
that's a good
highlighter.
question. I have
Has
a
a
highlighter.
highlighter.
It's a machine. I trained a machine learning algorithm to detect funny things. No, I don't know. I'm sure I missed
He,
stuff that's funny. Oh, I did find it. Here it is.
well,
Aha! I
don't
found ya,
you
you
edit the
stinking bug.
shows? Don't you
See?
produce the shows?
Yeah, I produced the show, so
So he
I'm putting
like
the show
actually
together.
listens to us after we record. That's the thing. He like legit listens.
Exactly.
He like
Uh,
listens really well
I
because
have to.
I've seen you trim content like where you remove the ums and the ahs and like you're really always on point with like what you focus on, where you start the show, end the show. It's
Well,
really
thank you.
impressive. Yeah, you're good.
We
yeah,
try.
I don't like listen to JS Party that often. But when I do, it's
I
great.
love
You do
Jay's
such a
Party.
good job, Jared.
Yeah, I
It's like
listen to
Taxi Cab
it.
Confessions or something. I don't listen to Jay's Party very often.
I listened to like all the old episodes, and then I started being
A panelist.
a panelist, and then I didn't.
That's
Hmm.
fair. I mean, why would you listen to the show you're on?
Well, I listen to the ones that I'm not on, in all fairness.
I,
Yeah,
I listen to them
but
all, but I definitely listen back to the ones that I wasn't there for more enjoyably.
mhm,
Like if I was there, then I'll be like, oh, I said something dumb. But if
yeah,
I'm not there, then I'm guaranteed not to say anything dumb.
yeah, but yeah, that makes sense. But not always. Like for example, like if I don't like the guest, which may or
Oh,
may not
hey,
have
let's not
happened.
name names. We're live.
Just joking. I'm just joking. No, no, no. I was really just joking.
All
No, no
right.
names named.
So welcome to we're still
Amal's got
pre-show.
beef.
Welcome to the live show. If you're on YouTube, join us in the JS Party channel of Changelog Slack. It's all free. Hop in there. Changelog.com/community. Free Slack invite. Chatter is in the JS Party channel. We don't chat on YouTube because YouTube people are mean. Only partly true. Looks like Steve's here. Looks like Omri's here. Looks like Lars is here. Give a shout if you are in the chat, and we'll say hi to you. Aaron's up in here. Cool. So we're ready to go. We've got an idea, kind of a segment show, got a topic to start. We'll see how that topic goes, and then we'll kick into segments. Amel, segment 3 is pro tip time, so please be thinking of some pro tips to share. And segment 2, if we use it, it's going to be story of the week, which is news things. I've gathered a couple. But if you have anything that's like new and interesting that's going on in the space, you want to talk about it, throw it in the doc. Cool?
Sounds good.
Okay. Let's start it. Oh, that's loud. I apologize. Welcome back, friends. It is JS Party time. We have a fun show for you today. I am joined by Amel and Chris. What's going on, y'all? Was
Oh,
that a duck?
no rush, Chris. Here I am trying to be all polite and let the gentleman go first. You know, come on.
Well, apparently we were visited by some sort of a animal instead of Chris.
Just kidding.
But Chris found out he's on the soundboard and he's trying to get new sounds onto the soundboard, it sounds like. But we're just going to have to stick with what you got so far.
JavaScript should be destroyed.
Classic Chris Hiller line. Well, let's talk non-dev things, maybe pre-dev. Help me understand what we're about to talk about here. It's kind of like when you're not coding, there's tons of things around the code. There's decision making, there's design, there's architecture, there's convincing people that what you're doing is the right thing. There's
Aligning
collaboration.
people.
There's just many concerns that happen even before you start to code, and then you have like the coding stuff, which we talk about all the time, and then there's things that happen afterward. So maybe we'll get to the after as well, but we're gonna start with like before at least. And this is a world that Amel, you've been living in quite a bit. Decision making, what to work on, how to build it. Tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, Jerod, this is my life, really. I mean, it feels like the longer I go in my career, the less and less code I write. And in some ways it's good, in some ways it's annoying. Like,
Yeah.
some ways it's good because, like I think the thing that's changed for me is like, when you first start out and you're really excited about software and, you get your first job and you get your first task, like the thing you first start doing is banging your keys on the keyboard, like you go right into the code, you don't even think. And then you're thinking and coding at the same time and like, all the cycles, like you have like 20 million cycles before you get to the solution because you're like really bad at parallelizing your thought stream, right? Because it's like it's hard to like write software and think about how you're going to write software at the same time, like to do it well. Anyways, it takes years of experience to like do that seamlessly. But so and now the more mature you get, you realize, oh no, you have to really design the problem design a solution, think about it, iterate on it outside the keyboard sometimes,
Yeah.
potentially depending on how large the problem is, get feedback from colleagues, align on it so you're not arguing over in your PR. You don't have like a 200 comment PR, because people have opinions and you've already you've solved it a different way. So there's just so much that goes into that pre-time. So in a sense that like I'm happy now that like I spend less time on keyboard because I know when to focus on keyboard. But I think the annoying thing comes for me in that like the flip side of this also for me is that like being a principal, a lead engineer now, like you're just like ahead of people and you're like in this like crazy land between engineering and product and design like and architecture and platform and this and that, and IT like sometimes even, and support. Like you're in this world with all these other people that aren't writing software all the time necessarily, right? Like there are other stakeholders, technical or non-technical, and like I just like, yeah, I'm just spending a lot of time there coming up with like what we need to do, how we gonna, and how we're gonna, no, like how we're gonna do what we need to do, iterate on that, and then come to my team with the plan. You know what I mean? And then it's like go.
What does
But
that
like
plan
sometimes,
usually look like? Like, what level of granularity are we talking about? Here's a bunch of specs, or here's some user stories to go work on. Are we talking
yeah,
about bigger picture? Like, this is the direction that we're going. Give us more to hook
it's
into here.
actually, yeah, that's a great question. It's all of the above, quite frankly. It's we have our kind of epic and product direction. Work at a product company, and you know, and so then it's kind of my job to like come up with like myself and other colleagues of mine that are in lead roles, like come up with essentially the architecture, the implementation, like the feasibility, what the MVP looks like, what are do the trade-off analysis for like different options, present that to kind of our stakeholders for feedback, get like a thumbs up there, and then when it comes down to like the actual team level, I'm involved with like, yeah, like the story creation and breakdown and like subtasks, like kind of like being a consultant on like this is how we should do it, and then obviously from there we iterate with the actual folks that are going to implement it. But yeah, I'm kind of involved at like very like both, and then even code reviewing it, and obviously at times when I get the chance these days it's like it seems less and less with like actually contributing to the code. But yeah, I obviously work alongside that, but I'm heavily involved with the code review process
Yeah.
obviously. And
What about you, Chris? Are you a grab a ticket and work on it kind of a developer? Or are you higher level decision making in the strategy of the software? What's your role usually in this?
Um, well, it varies. So my last job at IBM, it was more of a dev advocacy, open source engineering type role, and so I'm working with the open source communities. I'm working with maintainers and foundation peeps, and so uh, I'm not. I haven't been on a product team in really any capacity in a long time, um, and so I'm trying to think about how I work and how things happen in the open source world. Kind of you know there are certainly quite a few differences in how work gets done and who does the work and where the ideas come from and how those ideas get bounced around to stakeholders or not. Um,
there's some
so
interesting parallels though, Chris, which I
yeah,
think, for example, folks thinking that like a maintainer, like the lead maintainer of a large open source project needs to have like the highest number of commits, which is completely like a very false correlation. There's so much governance that goes into open source. So I think for me, there's lots of parallels with the product, like with like enterprisey product companies, like lots of parallels. And wouldn't you say?
well, I can't say I've really worked on much enterprise software, but uh, gosh, it feels a bit like night and day to me. I spent the earlier part of my career working on in product companies, building products, working in a team, essentially like collaborating with designers and product people and all that sort of thing. And for the past 5 years or so, it hasn't looked like that. Um, and I prefer what I'm doing now, obviously. But
Well, well, to be fair, to clarify, Chris, and of course I agree. I meant to say that the parallels are in how the software gets made. Like, there's still kind of there's still a before code phase for large new features in like widely maintained,
sure. Hmm.
adopted projects,
Sometimes,
and
yeah.
that before code phase usually involves is very similar to kind of what I would put together as my final
Sure.
like proposal plan for like architecting a new set of features, and so RFC, and then you have like architecture proposal plan like on my side, and then you have feedback on the RFC and all the discussion, and that's those are your stakeholders, is like the users of your library and the other maintainers, and they
Hmm.
contribute to that issue on GitHub, right? They have that discussion, and then but for me, it's a series of like 6 to 7 meetings over like 4 weeks or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like we're not as good at the async communication in enterprise land,
Mm,
unfortunately.
Right.
But
Um,
for me, those
yeah.
are the parallels.
Yeah.
You know.
Most open source projects don't have an RFC process.
Oh, I'm thinking of large
Most,
scale ones,
right.
like I
Most
guess
are
like.
very informal
well, how about
What
Mocha?
did you say
I
that
mean,
about
that's the one that
startups
you
though?
maintain.
uh, yeah. Mocha is really informal as well.
Yeah, I would expect it to be.
I'm spending a lot of time working with Appium lately, and
Hmm.
it's also pretty informal, right?
Hmm.
Um,
But
and
most software development is informal though. There's like a good chunk of the internet's websites code isn't living in GitHub. Like it's like not even, it's like it's not even in source control, right? Like, um, most like I think RFCs are the most formalized way, I think, in open source to collaborate on big ideas. But and I would say like not every company has an architecture committee review process, right? So it's like,
right,
Right.
you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you look at, sure. So yes, this RFC is. I can see the parallels there. I think I'm just kind of saying. Well, just in my experience, the projects that I've worked with are not at that level,
Mhm.
and that's fine. Um, I certainly wish certain projects would have an RFC process, but
Mhm.
you know, things happen
We
how they
should
happen.
we should
Yeah.
talk to GitHub about putting that as a default template or issue type or whatever. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Now they'll have those, like, there could be a way to do that. But anyways, hope someone from GitHub is listening.
I think I think lots of us are kind of in the middle versus in either extreme. It's probably more of
Mhm.
us on the small extreme than the large extreme. But I think many of us live like on a bell curve, of like org size and infrastructure around their work. And I think
Mhm.
Amal is probably representing the larger enterprise side where there's a lot of, let's just call it ceremony for lack of a better term, but things that need
Cogs.
to
Just
happen.
kidding.
But as developers, so I mean, all three of us here are developers, whether we're actively coding day in and day out or not. At a certain point, some sort of idea or spec or need comes to you, and you're still pre-code, right? Like here it
Mhm.
is. Whether it's a Jira ticket that tells you exactly what needs to happen, okay, kind of not that interesting. But most Jira tickets are written in a way that still you don't know what to do when you get it, right? You're like, okay,
Is
now I
this
have to, yeah,
English?
what in the
What
heck do they
this?
want here?
Qu'est-ce que ça?
So when you get that, when you have that tangible thing, which is either a need or a user story or something, right? Like, hey, we're going to add comments to the website, right? Like, there you go. Before you're coding, are there processes, are there things that you do personally in your dev work to figure out how you're going to attack that problem? Or is it just like break out the editor and start writing some tests or some code, or pop open your Webpack config and just get it rocking? What do you guys do?
I actually think Chris, in my head, Chris, before he starts coding or solving any problems, like he puts on like either like super heavy metal rock music and like cracks open a can of beer, or he's like listening to classical music and smoking a cigar. It's like one of the two, and I'm trying to understand, Chris, which of the two is closer to reality? And you're gonna say neither, right?
I'm a paradox.
Paradox. He's not
I'm
letting
an
you in.
enigma.
You know what? You know what? Damn it! I
He's
thought
not
a
letting
direct
you in.
question would be one way to find out something more about you, but now you're just even more intriguing and mysterious. Damn it! This experiment failed. Anyways,
Mystique has never really been one of my strong suits. But so like okay, my role now, a lot of my role is like this R&D, like making hypotheses and doing research, building prototypes. And that's a lot of my role right now.
No wonder
And
you're having fun.
I'm loving it. And I get to come up with an idea, and I go and I talk to people and say, okay, is this idea a stupid idea, or is this idea something that I should build out more and see if it's worth doing? And so I'll talk to people and find out, and then I'll go either way with it. And then if they're like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, then well, I'm going to build my prototype. And I don't do a whole hell of a lot of thinking about what I'm going to build, because I'm trying to get in there and see what's really possible, and like which direction I should really take things. It's I'm it, it's not necessarily, hey, let's like move very fast and do things like just barely scraping by just to get it out the door. It's not like that. It's experimentation, and yeah, that's fun. I find it like the easiest way for me to experiment is, and what makes the most sense to me is to actually build something, and throw it away and go build something else. And I mean, I throw away a lot of code. It's fine. I can live with myself. Uh, but yeah, it's I don't know if other people who may do more prototyping kind of do things that way. I'm pretty new to, I think, having this as a defined part of my role.
Yeah.
So it like if there's a better way to do it other than just like getting in there and just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks, you know, I'm all ears.
Well, that sounds like a really fun role. I've done that some, but never like been cut loose to just, research and develop. I sure would like to. Oftentimes, when I do those things, it's at the cost of something that I'm not doing, which I know I should be doing or I could be doing. So there's opportunity cost, which tends as a someone who's running a small business, you tend to take the opportunity cost very highly because it's like, well, these things need to get done or else things fall apart, and these things might be great, but they're going to get dropped down. So I would love to have kind of unfettered access to idea prototyping and being able to just throw code away when it's not panning out,
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I wouldn't call it unfettered. I mean, it still needs to make sense.
Well, I mean, sure. I'm unfettered in terms of it's not that it's like a part of what your allotted work time is for.
Yes.
Yes. So you're not opportunity costing necessarily. Like, well, I have this time dedicated to this role and I'm going to do the role. And that sounds great. So you're pretty fast. So you might come up with an idea. You might throw it past a colleague or maybe your users or your customers. And then you're basically, at that point, breaking out the code and start coding.
And,
Any
yeah.
whiteboarding, any diagramming or anything you do?
No.
Go ahead, Amal.
No, I said that's a super cool job. Like I love
Yeah.
that.
I'm jealous
I'm super
all of a sudden.
jealous. I'm
Yeah.
so jelly. Yeah. That's great. You'll have to tell
the
me if you get more creative over time or less creative over time. 'Cause I think my deepest
okay.
fear is that I'm going to run out of ideas, and I don't, I just, I don't know if that. I'm curious how the creativity
Mm.
will, that because you're in a very creative role, so I'm just curious, like if there's going to be like highs or lows, but
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't tend to run out of ideas, but I have so many bad ideas, and that's why
Ah,
I need to like validate my
yeah.
assumptions and talk with people who know better than I do.
how
Hmm.
fast is your feedback loop? Like, when do you know your idea is bad? Are we talking within hours, within days, within weeks?
Oh yeah, so I mean, talk to a couple people, maybe get that done in a week or two, and just kind of get a general feeling. Go and uh, maybe build a little prototype, and then from there, there's it can become more formal, where there's an actual like proposal. But then like and I haven't gotten to this part of the job yet, but it seems like there might be a drawback where I had this idea and I've built my prototype and I've written the proposal and everybody loves the proposal and somebody else implements it, but I don't
Mm.
get to. And like that might be a little weird for me. But like
Isn't it more
I
likely that the prototype becomes the implementation? Isn't that how things usually
it's
work?
pretty unlikely,
Okay, well,
the way
that's
we're
a
set up.
disciplined company then.
Well, I'm not like, yeah. So, I work for a product company and there are people building our products, but I'm not in their like division or whatever. I'm not on those teams. And so, we're fairly like sequestered, I guess. Like
Yeah.
there's no I don't think there's really any way I'm going to build some dumb prototype and it's going to actually show up on our website. So,
Well, that's good
Yeah,
discipline, like I said.
they are a testing company. Don't you work at Sauce Labs?
mhm.
I know, and I know from a recent email that you guys just acquired Backtrace.
Mhm.
Congratulations. I
Thank
was
you.
like, did you really need to email me
Thank
about that,
you.
Sauce Labs? Like, I felt like I really didn't need to know, but now that I know, congratulations. Really exciting.
Are you also in
So,
mergers and acquisitions, Chris, or
No.
yeah, no.
you're supposed to say no comment? You're supposed to stay mysterious.
Yeah, exactly.
One of your good
Um,
ideas.
yeah. Well, actually answer your question, Jared.
Yes.
For me, like there is like at this point, I can't even think of the last time I was figuring out how I wanted to design the problem before writing it. So my hands don't touch the keyboard until I kind of know how I want to target this problem exactly. So my time on the keyboard is very scapular as a result of that. I'm
Mm,
like, I
slice
need to
and
get from
dice.
point A to point B, and it's like okay, most efficient route. Doot 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 doot. That's it. Like there isn't like and the only reason why I know what the most efficient route is or my preferred route is because I've thought about it in advance of writing anything or touching the keyboard.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's my, and it's like required, like for me, like I can't. It's very anxiety inducing to like write code before you know exactly how you want to finish the solution end to end. So it gives me anxiety.
I kind of take the Mike Tyson approach. He says everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face,
All right.
and so the plan becomes worthless immediately once the real world hits. So I try to get as fast as possible into some sort of coding, knowing that whatever I come
Wow.
up with in, in my mind or on a whiteboard is usually going to be like, well, that was as soon as I start coding it, I'd be like, no, that that actually sounded really good in my brain, but when it hits the real world, ends up being tossed
Hmm.
to the side anyhow. So I'm pretty fast to just experiment and maybe just think through like some small coding, using kind of a TDD
Hmm.
flow to like design the solution and let it kind of come out somewhat organically. That doesn't mean I don't put any thought into anything. I'm not just like a head west and start coding, but um, rarely will I spend too much time before having something that I can at least touch and feel,
Yeah, that's
But
intellectually.
awesome.
Amal,
That's
you're
great.
building big things.
Yeah, usually, but even when I'm working on a small feature, I kind of like know exactly what I need to do before I like touch the keyboard. Like I don't like figuring it out while I'm trying to write the code. Like,
Yeah.
I like to look at the code, know where I need to make the change, like do my research, walk around,
Walk
like
around.
snoop, look for how someone else did it and see if they're, like if I like see if I even need to invent the solution, you know? I like
Yeah.
to, is there prior art? Is there like you gotta,
Sure.
you don't like otherwise you're just like reinventing the wheel or like forgetting to use a common util that already existed and you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
pays to like do a little bit of like how I do this investigation, And literally, I did not accidentally forget a word. It's literally how I do this. How do for short. Like,
Okay, so maybe I spoke too brashly. I mean, because I also do those things. Maybe I just don't think about that as planning as much as like that's part of the process. Like, do I even have to write this code? Is always a question that
Yeah.
I'm asking,
Yes,
right?
that's what I'm saying. That's the
So
first
I
thing
will
is you
try to
have to be
like,
lazy.
yeah. So I'm just
Not
kind of
only
like
lazy, but just
I guess I just figure that it's like dorking around time, Like I'm not
yeah.
actually doing anything yet, but maybe I am. I'm
No,
like
you are.
formulating. Yeah.
You are. Trust me. Your mind is a powerful weapon, Jared.
Thank you.
So, you are
You just made the
absolutely,
soundboard.
you are, oh God. Of course I did. Of course. Self-serving
Oh,
comment. Oh
got
my
a marker
God.
right
Can you
there.
just
I'm gonna cut
anonymize
that
my
one out.
voice? Okay, I don't want to forever be associated as like the woman is she the woman behind Jared, your
Your
mind is a
mind is a
powerful,
powerful
powerful
weapon, Jared.
weapon. you know that's
Yeah,
my claim to fame now because you're constantly playing it. It's like ends up on all the podcasts
that's
on
right.
changelog.
I just I just show up as a guest on other people's shows and just play that clip. Yeah,
Mind is a powerful, yeah. Anyways, so no, your mind is constantly solving problems, and like our employers get a lot of free time from us. I mean, unpaid labor, I should say, but and subconscious is, yeah, it's much more absorbent than your conscious mind.
yeah.
So even when
I
your
actually used to
conscious
tell
mind is
that to my
skimming, you know,
back when I was doing consulting. I would tell that to my potential clients. I would say, if your problems are interesting enough, I'll work for you 24/7, but I'll only charge you for the times when I'm writing the code
yeah,
because I actually
exactly,
can't stop thinking about it.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
I think they like
Sounds
that.
like a puzzle.
Yep,
Yeah, we're lucky we get to solve problems for a living, so lucky us,
it's
Jared
fun.
and
It is fun.
Chris, the Enigma.
And Chris gets to solve problems that he devises too. He can just come up with something and
Yeah,
solve
he
it.
can make up his own
Yeah,
stuff, right?
create my own
Keep himself
problems.
employed. Yeah.
That's right. See, I create the bug and then I fix the bug.
Yeah.
I'm creating my own way.
Yeah, but the challenge with Chris's job, which is why, Chris, I'm really genuinely curious about this for you, is like, for me, it's very much in like you're in hard mode all the time. And I I live my life in sprints. Like I like working really hard for a month or 2 months and then taking like a down month where I like chill out. And I feel like when you're in R&D and you're working on this creative project and it's like, okay, one thing after another, like I feel like you have a lot of high intensity intervals for your brain. So I'm really excited to see like, you know, what that's like for you, like over time.
Hmm.
You're just like, no, I'm an idea factory.
He's
and
not
I'm
going to tell you.
to mill it out.
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe it's just like a different style of how I prefer to work because like
Mhm.
what's really gonna stress me out is like daily stand-ups
Mhm.
and deadlines and stuff
Mhm.
like that. If I can provide some vague, well, I think it'll take me, this long to have something to show,
Mhm.
and then I'm not gonna freak out about that. But like, uh, you know, I,
Dude,
I don't get too stressed out working this way. Let's just
I,
put it that way.
yeah, no, but like you just like hit something for me that's like so important, which we should double click into for folks like, especially folks who are managers that are listening to this. Please pay attention. I'll give you a minute to take out your notebooks. Okay, so Chris, like what you just said was like, I don't have all these external artificial like deadlines and pressures and like and that's what gives me and also just like cadence meetings, which really are very they're more like chores than they are useful. like sometimes like these stand-ups, groomings, whatever the hell else. Like I'm given this kind of unfederated control of my time and creativity, and that's because of that. Like I don't see myself really getting tired of this, and or just whatever. Like I'm productive and happy. Like managers, whatever. Like it's about output, you know. And I really do think we have a lot of rigidity in like what we expect of engineers and their time, and also like their ability to be productive. Like some people are better like at night, and some people prefer writing software in the mornings or whatever. And you know, some people, like if they have one meeting in the middle of the day, it throws their entire day off. Like makers hours are a thing, and they're different than manager hours. And you know, I think we should be working more towards like making our makers as, you know, happy and comfortable as possible, because writing software is an art, and like you have to respect the creative brain that's required to like produce that, you know. So you know what I'm saying, y'all?
I'm with
Like
you.
yeah, so
Respect the creative brain. All right, let's break right here. Break on that. Break, break that.
break
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 that down.
break that down. Yeah, I was what I wasn't sure where to go, because I was like, when are we breaking? Because I don't really want to start a new thing, or like, you know. But then you kept going, Jared, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna play along. So I was like, I guess this is gonna be a really long segment.
We'll just do 2 segments instead of 3,
Yeah,
and I'll work
which is
and I'll
great.
work a yeah, I'll work a break in there early on
Sure.
somewhere for the.
Whatever you would like,
So we'll do
brother
both. We
man.
can do story of the week, but let's just do the Dan Aberman blog post. Did you read that one, Amal?
No, I didn't. Can
Okay,
you want to
I'll summarize it.
summarize?
Chris is aware of it. Let me send you the link so you can scan it
Yeah.
real quick. It's about NPM audit. Uh, I think it's like uh, on point, well
Oh my
written, but
God,
also
I
just
don't
like
think I'm
speaks.
allowed to talk about NPM on live air. No, I'm just joking.
Oh,
I'm just joking.
okay.
I was literally ah ha ha. But yeah,
It's
no.
like
What is it?
I just posted it into the Riverside chat.
Okay.
Actually, no, I'll post it into the JS Party channel. That way, everybody has it.
Okay.
There it is. NPM audit broken by design. It's about NPM audit, but I think it generalizes as well to a certain degree. And you can scan it real quick. I'll also summarize it, and then we'll go into pro tips.
Oh, they rolled it out as a default after install. I think that's like ridiculously bad decision. They should have done that with a flag. Like, you know, they should just keep it as, you know, with a flag. Like, I don't understand. That's ridiculous. Like, ridiculously bad decision. I'm so sorry. I'm saying this with authority because I used to work at NPM, and I'm just like, I know what kind of breakage this has. Like it has a very big impact, you know. Like, and so it's people it's not going to break things. It's gonna like it's going to increase build times or whatever the hell else, like across the board in many places as people bump their package versions. I mean their npm versions. So
Yeah.
oof.
So you're ready then.
It doesn't. So if you npm install, it will say, "Hey, you have vulnerabilities," but it doesn't like exit with code 1 or something. It only breaks the build unless you like run npm audit and make that part of your CI. And
Yeah, no. I guess I should say that, like, I'm assuming they are going. This did increase build times, right? Because there's like
It's
not
most.
like install
Let's
time.
save this.
Was
Let's save
install
this for
time?
the. Let's
Okay,
save
yeah.
this
We'll
for the
save
show.
this for the yeah. I'm gonna read the article in the meantime. So let me do that.
Yeah, and I'll summarize it. Well,
Okay.
and you'll have enough information
Okay.
after the summary, I
Okay.
believe. Okay.
Cool.
So we are going to do a brief story of the week segment. I tried to. My soundboard must have broke. I'll try that again. It's time for story of the week. It's broken. Try this one. No, nothing. Soundboard's broken, people. Sorry, live listeners. Soundboard no longer works. I think it's because inside this is still part of the break then. Inside of Riverside, there's this like right-hand side thing which has the studio, the media, and the chat. And it's like a, what do you call it? It's like a tabbed UI. and I think I tabbed. I think when you tab between it, it breaks things. So I tabbed over to the chat, pasted something, tabbed back to media, and I can no longer click on anything. So report that bug. I'm going to report that to Riverside. All right, I'm going to start over. I'm not going to play the song, so we'll put it in post. All right, we are going to do a brief story of the week time. And for this segment, we're going to be talking about a recent Dan Abramov blog post about NPM audit, which probably at this point we're all aware of NPM audit, and that's kind of one of the things this post is covering. We had some folks from NPM on the show way back when. The company that got acquired and was doing the audit stuff got it rolled out together. I can't remember the fellow's name. Very nice guy. Talking about NPM audit, but here we are. It's probably a couple years later, and Dan Abramov says the way NPM audit works is broken. Its rollout as a default after every NPM install was rushed, inconsiderate, and inadequate for front-end tooling. He then goes on to say, have you ever heard the story about the boy who cried wolf? And we probably have heard that one, where every time he cried wolf, it was a false alarm, and then when it was finally true, his parents didn't believe him, and so the wolf ate the sheep. And Dan goes through in great detail how NPM audit works that way, mostly because there's so many false positives. They're not false insofar as they really are. It really is reporting real vulnerabilities. It's false because those vulnerabilities, for whatever reason, are irrelevant to your code in many cases. And so because of that, it's mostly an annoyance. It makes everybody's lives a little bit worse for various reasons. And it was broken by design, he says, because it was added as the default post-install deal. So curious what you two think of what Dan has to say about NPM audit itself, but also about this general software challenge of tooling that is overly noisy and ends up basically making itself useless. I mean, think of notifications and things that we build in order to notify us when there's problems, such as this, which in theory is very useful. Knowing when your code has vulnerability is very useful. But because of implementation or some of the hard problems out there to solve, end up becoming more of an annoyance, and you just ignore it. You just don't pay any attention. Like, don't pay any attention to, it's like the compiler warnings, those warnings don't matter. And then when it actually has something that's real, you're no longer paying attention to it. What do y'all think?
Do you want to go?
No, you go, Chris, please.
Okay. Well, so I've complained about this for a couple of years, and NPM audit itself, I don't see as being necessarily the problem, but it is part of the problem. So, yeah, essentially, I think what Dan's saying in this article is, okay, somebody has paid a security researcher to go and find prototype pollution bugs in these random JavaScript libraries or what have you. Okay, and that library might be consumed by, say, a build tool. And that build tool will output code, but it doesn't really have anything to do with that vulnerability. A, the vulnerable code path might not even be hit, and B, even if it was hit, the context in which the code is running, which is like a shell or a command line, is already vulnerable because it's already a shell. It's just all these warnings basically become then irrelevant. And there there's now why is it this way? Well, static analysis of security problems. So That's what npm audit does. It looks and sees, oh, is there a dependency there that has like an associated CVE or whatever, and it says, oh, yes, and that's essentially all it's doing, right? And then certain other companies that start with an S and end with a K, they do something similar, where it's like, let's analyze your dependencies and see which ones are broken. But it doesn't know that, as I said before, it doesn't know that you're actually using the vulnerable code, and it doesn't know where that vulnerable code will be run, because what it's examining code at rest. Okay, it's like code at rest is not. It's a text file. Okay, like it's not a security risk until it is run. Okay, and so then wherever the code is run, that's where you should worry about your attack surface, right? And so it's these static analysis tools are like essentially too dumb to do this. And with a language like JavaScript, which is extremely dynamic, it becomes an even tougher problem. With something like, say, a Java, you may have enough type information and introspection to understand, okay, is this vulnerable code actually run? And maybe you can do that with static analysis. I don't know. Maybe it's something you want to throw machine learning at. I don't know. But the state of things now is that they just don't work very well. Most of what they're reporting is irrelevant.
You know
And go ahead.
No, please. I'm interrupting you. I'm just kind of foaming at the mouth to kind of jump in here.
Right. And so then there's there's two problems. One is this the boy who cried wolf, right? Where you're confronted with all this noise and all these warnings, and you eventually ignore them. The other one is the people who are in these maybe enterprise companies or whatever, where the security or IT has mandated that the code must pass these audit checks.
Right.
And so
You
if they're
mean
consuming,
basically hell.
right,
Hell for most of us.
but they
Anyways,
exist,
yeah.
right? And so
Oh,
you have to pass these
absolutely,
audit checks. You must
absolutely.
make sure that
And you
that
can understand from a higher up perspective
Absolutely,
why that's like a
compliance.
good decision, you know?
Sure. And the way NPM works, and I don't know, maybe you can get around this problem with Yarn, is that if something in, say, Mocha is consuming some transitive dependency that's broken, well, Mocha is going to have to upgrade out of that. Okay, it's not something that the consumer can do
Yeah,
directly.
it's a supply
which-
chain problem. It's
Right.
outside your control.
And so we have people who have these like overzealous security policies that mean they have to pass the audit checks coming into the open source project's issue tracker and demanding that the stuff gets upgraded. Maybe that turns out to be like 100 Dependabot or Renovate or whatever PRs like every week. I don't know, but it's just like a flood of things, and then people want it to be, so it creates more work for maintainers to try to manage what is essentially busy work, because it's irrelevant. The only real problem is that there's a warning, and somebody's like company policy says they can't use the software until it's fixed, and like their builds fail because of it. And that's like not something I can influence. I can certainly say that's stupid. Don't make your build fail on these things. But you know, I can't do anything about what some random company decides they need to do. And yeah, and security people I've seen do take a hardline stance on this stuff. Well, you might as well upgrade, right? You should get used to upgrading. And it's good practice to avoid these vulnerabilities wherever we see them. At one level, that is true, but unless you're paying me to do that, I have no interest in it, and people aren't paying me to do that, and they're not paying open source maintainers to address that. So
yeah. So I'm going to have Amal continue to foam for just a second. I'm going to skip in line and just add on to that real quickly and say it's not just an NPM problem, like you said, because GitHub's notifications, their whole system does the exact same thing to me all the time.
Yep.
And I'm always like, this is irrelevant code. This is part of my build routine, build step of my assets, which becomes static and it never runs in any sort of capacity where it could be exploited. To their credit, you can click through on those and say like, this is irrelevant. Like you can give them. I'm not sure if they're capturing that feedback, in terms of like learning, probably not, but they're at least allowing you to say, this audit is irrelevant, make it go away.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if that would be compliant with certain orgs policies and stuff, but you don't have to go back and have the open source person just upgrade arbitrarily because I need my audit to pass. I can just go ahead into there and say, and it has like 5 or 6 options of why it may not be relevant. And so that's like, it still annoys me, but at least it gives me a escape hatch.
Yeah,
So
there
that's,
is no escape hatch with npm
yeah.
unless you adopt like third-party tooling that gives you one.
All right, Amal, unleash the wave.
First of all, just Chris, thank you so much for walking us through that. It was really great to get your summary and then also walk through your pain points. Both as an engineer, but as also as a maintainer and someone
Yeah.
who's been aware of these problems. From the points of view that Dan Abramov also has, right? Like as a maintainer, like this is a shit show because so for me, like I feel like we've kind of created this problem for ourselves by not having more crowdsourced. Um, like the spec is broken in the sense that like it's missing context, right? So where is this code being run, and what's the context, and how does it link into dev dependency versus production dependency, and like those are inputs to really saying this is actually a vulnerability that matters or isn't, right? And like that's kind of what you were saying. Like that's the missing piece. But like that should just be part of the spec, and parts of that data should be crowdsourced, and you know, like in the sense that like, or there should be a consensus, or some, I don't know, some way of like saying like, okay, well, like 700 people agree that this is not important, like 90%, over 90, whatever, high number of percentage of people with this number of minimum threshold, right? Like, so you can similar to like a machine learning training model. Usually you want to give it like a score, like hey, this machine learning algorithm is 80% sure that this is a picture of a cat, right? Like something like that for saying like, hey, this vulnerability is not uh, applicable to your context, and so it's safe to ignore. And that could just be input. That could just be part of a configuration where you specify like where these dependencies are being used in what context, and then based on that, that like you have a customized report output of what's actually a vulnerability to you. Like I just feel like we can we can fix this problem for ourselves if we take that approach, you know. So I don't know. I don't know if you think that would work, Chris.
For that some small subset of people, like it is going to be helpful because it is going to surface an actual vulnerability. Um, and so, yeah, you'd want to know about it. You wouldn't want that information to be squelched because it's not a problem for most people, but it actually is for you. Um, I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. And there's this. I feel like whatever the real like end game solution is, it needs to be like a combination of examining your code at rest and examining your code or in the runtime and what happens when it runs. You know, and that's going to vary depending on the language and platforms that you use. So JavaScript, as we can see from this whole debacle, you're going to learn more about if a program is actually vulnerable at when that code is running, because it will have hit the code. And how do you know if something hits a code path? Well, I think you probably like figure that out with what is it called? It's like proofs. I can't remember the word for it. It's like analysis of.
Um, it's a static like the code analysis that like things like
It's like
assemble
proving
and
your code is correct. It's like a way to prove.
oh,
I can't remember the word for it, but you could like
um,
do that with certain languages,
interesting.
but probably not JavaScript. Like
Yeah, no, it's not.
you
Yeah,
could prove
compatible.
that hey, this vulnerable line will get run, or it won't get run, um, or it could get run, and that sort of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I think like if you're running, say, tests,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great opportunity to do this
Right.
sort of check for, hey, you're hitting this line in Lodash version whatnot, and it's bad.
Right.
I think we could build tools like that.
Yeah, it's like a world of opportunity. It's such a hard problem to solve as a turnkey, so like in it with one turnkey solution, right? Like it's like a multifaceted approach. And so I think solving each segment alone is valuable, but it feels like it doesn't seem, I don't know, maybe it alone doesn't, maybe not enough of a commercial value for companies to pop her up and service it. Like, I don't know, it's kind of like an all or nothing situation, you know? Like, um, I think that's maybe why this problem hasn't been solved yet, quite frankly. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there's really a big incentive, and maybe there
yeah, there's
is,
not an incentive enough. Yeah.
like for NPM to devote resources to
Hmm.
do something here. Do
Hmm.
they want to be in the market? Do they want to really compete with Sneak or whatever?
Hmm.
It's
Right. I mean, NPM at this point is basically just is GitHub. But so I think it's interesting that the focus is on like AI spitting out your code, or spitting, having a co-pilot, you
Yeah,
know.
writing my bugs for me.
Um, yeah, because they, it's similar to kind of like, GitHub should be invested in the ecosystem because the ecosystem is what feeds them, right? Like a healthy developer ecosystem, healthy open source ecosystem, whatever the hell else. Like that's just like, so they would be the perfect people to tackle this problem deeply because they can. They have the resources to do it, and they, and the yeah, the connections and the whatever, all of that stuff. This would be an area for them to, I think, like demonstrate some leadership. I hope they do. So we'll see.
So Dan did post 3 kind of quasi solutions or
Mm-hmm.
workarounds, none of which, a couple of what we've discussed here, none of which are spectacular. I think short term, what NPM should do is cut a new version of the client and just disable the default, right? Let us opt into this versus opt out. Probably they're not going to do that, but I think that would at least take care of the crying of the wolf. And, if you want someone to yell at you, then you
Well,
have to pass the flag.
NPM's been making some pretty bold changes lately, like some very aggressive ones. Like, for example, the peer dependencies, being installed for you in V7. I don't know if y'all, Chris, you're aware of this. So basically, like V7 is potentially a massively breaking change for like lots of this, peer dependency install, or like
What are the
bundle
implications of that?
sizes getting increased or whatever else. It's that like if you have missing or incorrect version, I think, of the peer dependency, it's now going to auto install it for you versus just warning, where people like get the warning and maybe they fix it, maybe they don't, but like something's behaving potentially differently now. I mean, it like like I think this should have been in the spec from the beginning. Don't like, but
was
retroactively adding it now is, I think, potentially really reckless.
I thought it used to do this, and they changed it not to because of dependency hell. I don't know the issues off the top of my head, but um, and then now they're changing it back for I have no idea why. And I have no idea why they disabled it in the first place,
Mm-hmm.
other than it was causing
Yeah,
it
it should have been.
problems when there's, I think, just the mismatches between peer dependencies. Like if you have if you have dependency A, which depends on B version 5, and you have
Mm-hmm.
dependency C, which depends on B version 6, then there's like you're stuck because you need peer dependencies of both 5 and 6 of B, and you can only
Mm-hmm.
install one of them. And I don't know what they're doing about that now. I don't know. So
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like changing the spec at this stage, like at the scale that they're at. Like, oof, I don't know. You know, I mean, the reality is most people who use npm upgrade with their node version. Rarely does the average company set of users do an npm install dash g npm, because npm is
Right.
an npm package, by the way. I know it's super meta, but npm install dash g npm is like what you use to like bump your version of npm, which doesn't depend on the version of node. And so it's like, you know, like people aren't gonna start hitting this until they get to like later node versions where, you know, it's been cut with v7. So, you know, it could be a slow rolling like discovery, and that's why it's really like you need to be really responsible when you have a tool that's that widely adopted and used. You
Mm.
know, like you can't just do things that are even mildly risky. You know, you have to be conservative, and that's why I just feel like with this change, you know, and the peer dependency thing, I don't know, there's just been some, I mean, I whatever, I mean, I'm not gonna, I have some interesting insight into, I think, some of the cultural changes since the acquisition, you know, which, you know, could be attributed to this, but like, yeah, I think things are just a little, a little too rogue for something that's that widely used, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I do want them to turn it off, right? But
Yeah.
that's probably gonna break
yeah,
somebody, right? Yeah, like changing defaults. You don't want to change defaults.
that's what I'm saying. You don't
So,
at all. And you want, like, you should try to preserve backwards compatibility as much as possible, like with your life almost. You know what I mean? Like, so, I don't know. It's whatever. You know what? Somebody made a comment recently about how scripting tools like npm and a CLI or whatever, like these like little JavaScript modules that we write, and there's people who have hundreds of JavaScript packages. Um, well, scripting is in particular, it's a very unique type of engineering. It's like there's a whole different set of constraints that they need to think about when like you know, doing operating, when you're connecting with the OS and you have to manage like their dependency tree and matrix is like quite large, you know, like there's lots of different variations of like considerations to take into place. So um, it's a hard job. I don't envy those engineers. So kudos. It's easy for us to judge, but I know it's
Yep.
you know, it's a hard job. So
Well, to be continued. I guess we'll
yeah,
find out what happens next in this
yeah.
saga. Likely nothing on this front in particular. Maybe just some more discussion, a little hemming and hawing. We'd love to know what you think as a listener. Definitely hit us up. You can comment on changelog.com. You can send us a tweet at JSPartyFM. You can hit us up in the Slack. Of course, two things I wanted to note before we call it a day. The first one, we are gearing up for Front End Feud. We have a very special, what I think will be a very exciting episode of Front End Feud in the works, but we need your help. Of course, Front End Feud is our survey-based show, a lot like Family Feud, and we need to have the survey says. So we need more people to take the Front End Feud survey. We have 55 respondents. We're trying to get to 100. You can find it at jsparty.fm/ff. And one lucky respondent will win a free JS Party t-shirt. That's the very one I'm wearing right here. If you're watching the video, it's very comfortable. You want to go to there. So please help us out. Fill out that survey and make Front End Feud awesome. And then secondly, we do take requests. So we'd love to hear what you would like to hear, or guests or topics you want to have on the show. So you can let us know at jsparty.fm/request. We'd be happy to do episodes that are requested by the listeners. Those are the two things. That's all we got for today. Chris and Amal, thanks for hanging out and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And that's JS Party for this week. We'll talk to y'all next time.
bye bye.
And I don't have the outro song because the soundboard's broken. And you're muted, Mo.
I just sang for you. I said, it's okay, there's post-editing. So, it's fine. We'll pretend like there's music. I can dance.
I can dance if I want to. I can
Yeah.
leave my friends behind.
Yeah, that was really fun, guys. Thank you so much for a great discussion.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed this.
Lots
I hope you
to
did
say
too.
about the NPM stuff. That was
Oh
good.
man, yeah. We should say more off air.
Ah.
I would love to hear it.
Oh, sure, Chris. We
All
should
right,
talk.
well, we're going to
should-
say
Give me an
goodbye to the
earful.
live listeners.
happy to do so.
Thanks for hanging out, as always, in the channel and for watching live. Of course, this episode will be produced and put out next Friday, so stay tuned for that. And tomorrow morning,
everyone.
we have a brand new episode, JS on WASM, which we recorded last week, which is, I think they got into some very nitty-gritties. So that one will hit you tomorrow. So goodbye, live listeners.